Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Provider AWS subproject meeting. It is April 30th, 2021. Please remember to respect the code of conduct, and let's go ahead and get started. So we have a pretty light agenda today. We have a suggestion that has been getting kicked along for backlog grooming. I'm going to move that to the end, assuming we have time. I did want to give a quick update on cloud provider extraction from the AWS perspective. Just like a quick summary is that we have a number of moving pieces with the cloud provider extraction. We have the Cloud Controller Manager, which is you can find that project at Kubernetes/cloud-provider-AWS. We're working on that. We consider it in an alpha state. We have alpha releases for, I think, starting at 118 up through 120 and working on 121. And then also trying to get what we'll call beta releases out as soon as possible for all of those versions in the next month, I'm hoping. I think that the effort that we're working on right now with that, I am looking into a feature that was just recently added to Entry, which is the HA leader migration feature. So that's something that EKS needs for allowing HA clusters to upgrade from a single KCM to a KCM plus CCM with different leaders. And it's just some configuration, basically. And then another piece to that same repository is the credential provider, the kubelet credential provider, I think is what we call it. So that is something that Averick has been working on a lot, where we have an implementation of it, and he is currently adding some type of binary. I think we're starting with just a GitHub release that can be downloaded, and that would go on the worker nodes. So, for example, the EKS worker node AMI is going to have to include that binary along with some configuration that kubelet respects, which will take the place of the code that's currently inside kubelet that provides the ECR image credentials. Same for COPS. I did open an issue in the COPS repo, just mentioning that we'll need to do that. I think Averick is thinking about that as well. So I believe he will be opening up a PR for that. So we did have, separately, we did have an extraction meeting that I missed. I want to say last week that there was some talk, maybe Andrew can talk about this a little bit, but there was the persistent volume label, what was previously the admission controller, which is now the persistent volume labeler controller, has some AWS and Google specific code in it. And I believe we need to decide how to replace that. I did miss that meeting, so I don't know the specifics. I need to rewatch that one. Andrew, do you happen to want to update on that?
Yeah, I wasn't there either. Just got back from vacation. But I do know that Walter was planning to rehash that on the next meeting. Like, I don't think we made any formal decision on what to do there.
Got it. Cool. So that's all I can think of off the top of my head. in terms of where we are. I think the timeline is getting tighter. I think the most reasonable first possible date for actually, I don't think it'll happen this early, but actually taking Cloud Provider code out of Uptree is probably like 124. So the schedule is now coming out for 122. If Cloud Provider, if like the components that we have go beta as soon as possible, and then some type of GA around 123, we're cutting it pretty close at this point. So we need to. So from our perspective, we're ramping up effort. Any thoughts on schedule?
Yeah, just to add to that, there's a PR that is currently open right now in Kubernetes, where we're adding a feature gate to every core component. It's going to be called like disable Cloud Provider or something like that. And obviously it'll be introduced as alpha and off by default. And at some point, we're going to flip that feature gate to beta, which will by default like turn off the Cloud Provider. And by turn off, I mean, if you ran a core component with the Cloud Provider flag set to anything that's not external, then the process just like exits early and die. And so like that, hopefully like that is the strongest signal we can give to users, like please migrate off to the outer tree. But they still have the option, and I'm sure most of them will just go with this option, but they still have the option to flip the feature gate off explicitly and continue to run the entry provider. And then at some point we flip the feature gate to GA, lock it, and then that's when they have to migrate. But the idea is that switch to beta is going to be like it's like the best warning we can give users, and then at that point it's kind of like it's your fault if you don't migrate off. And I think like maybe I guess like the intention of FeatureGate was that it puts more it makes the whole like removing Cloud Provider, disabling it more concrete, and we can just look to the FeatureGate, like when the FeatureGate or target when the FeatureGate goes beta and GA, and look at that as like the release timeline for when we're gonna really cut the tie off. And that also decouples like removal of the functionality from removal of the code itself, right? Like we don't necessarily have to remove the code in the same release we disable it. We can turn it off for free releases and then remove the code some future release afterwards.
That makes a lot of sense.
So I think like 124 for the switch to beta, where we turn it off by default, seems reasonable to me. But yeah, I mean, that's up for discussion. But I'm hoping that at least for 122, we get the initial FeatureGate merged, and it can work and it can turn things off if the gate is on.
I see. That makes sense. Anybody else have questions or thoughts on that? Cool. So for the kept that we were talking about before we started recording, I don't think necessarily we need to rehash it here. I will just add to the agenda and mention it. And if people are interested, they can go watch. There's the conversation in SIGAuth earlier this week, but just as a quick summary, it's a feature that's interesting to EKS because it allows SIG v4 on the client side for Kubernetes. SIG v4 is the Amazon AWS method of basically authenticating requests. So it's a request signing mechanism. The implementation is still being debated, but what has been mostly agreed upon amongst SIGAuth is a extension to the existing exec feature in Client Go, where in this case, a binary would be exect and it would return a Unix domain socket path or a port for use on localhost, which would then be communicated to by Client Go. So all of the requests would be sent to that. That would be a proxy. And there would have to be that proxy, that localhost proxy would have to obey existing proxy settings. So you have this little bit of, if you already have a proxy set up, you have some kind of chaining. But the idea is that whatever's listening on that Unix domain socket or port is going to do the request signing, and then it's going to send the request on to the API server. There's already a feature for a front proxy in front of the API server to do any kind of custom validation that people need. So we don't really need to solve that side of it. It's really just the client side that needs something. Yeah, so I'll link that in the agenda. And if people are interested, they can just go watch the SIGAuth update.
I actually have a question now that you've explained it again. Currently our exec plugins, currently our plugins for authentication are called and return, as I recall, the token that is used. It sounds like this is actually a full proxy. Is that right? That's
yes.
Awesome. That's actually really, so it's much more powerful.
Yeah.
So for example, if I wanted to this is, I definitely need to watch that, because for example, if I wanted, we've had a long-standing issue, for example, to have multiple IP addresses, right, be supported in in Client Go. Like now you could do it with this plugin. Or if I wanted to say, I want to auto dial my API server over the only VPN WireGuard, then I could do that sort of thing now, right?
Yeah.
That's okay. Exactly. This is really cool. All right. Awesome.
And if you have, so that was one, I tried to scope the KEP to be specific to my use case. And then everyone started coming later. They're like, no, we need to make sure that this meets other use cases, because they had, so if you have, I'd love to talk to you about that and just make sure that, the more examples we have, the more, the easier it is to push it along and convince people that it's important. So I'll make a mention of it. And I'll reach out to you.
Wonderful, okay. Thank you.
Just adding it to the agenda. I'll get the link later. Okay, I have had backlog grooming on the agenda for a while. I did quickly want to ask, Kishore, are you did have the race condition for the service controller issue? Did you want to update on that, or do you need anything? Are you good with that one?
Yeah, I don't have any update since Wednesday. I haven't had a chance to look at it after that time.
Okay. All right.
I left in the issue, I left a comment on how I think we should approach it. There's a function right before the node, you reconcile a service based on a node update. And I think that just needs to check if the finalizer is, or if the cleanup needs to happen for a given service.
Yeah, I'll take a look next week when I get some time to work on the potential fix. So I will reach out to you on Slack if I need help.
Sounds good. Thanks.
Okay. Let's see. Can you see my screen? Is it a reasonable aspect ratio, or should I think I can also do this, open another window, which shrinks it. So let me know if you can't see that. just seems to be definitely a problem.
It also talks about ingress and ALB. Like, are we sure like they're not mixing things together here?
Yeah, seems strange that this would, something like this would only affect CCM.
I mean, it's a basic configuration, right? Looking at the
Yeah.
description, I mean, something that should work.
Hmm. Okay. Oh, I can take it. I can just ask them some questions and see if there's something misconfigured with their setup.
It is K3S as well, so.
Ooh. What is K3S like a mini cluster on one
It's
instance sort of thing?
It's a fork. I feel like once you fork it, you're on your own.
Oh, it's a fork?
Yeah, the fork specifically optimized for like edge. And for that reason, it actually doesn't have any of the cloud providers built in, which is why someone running K3S on AWS would have to run something like CCM or something else.
Oh, wow. Okay. Yeah, I don't know what what to say in that case. Oops. I'll see what I can do to help them, but if the code base is actually different, then okay. And it'll be not spanning across A to Z's. Kishore, by the way, one way we could just kind of easily by default split up these issues, because it's always kind of a question, is maybe just since we're planning on eventually shifting NLB features to load balancer controller, we can just start out throwing NLB issues at you, and then I can take the classic ELB stuff, and then
Sure, that works out. That works fine. I will
Cool.
start monitoring this queue as well and start posting updates.
yeah, and if you have classic stuff from KK, you know, if you don't have to, but if you feel like it, you can throw them my way.
Sure.
Okay, so this is.
Usually he didn't enable Cornerstone node balancing. Oh, yeah, we have.
Cross zone.
Yeah, I'm not sure when this Cornerstone node
So the thing is like, it may not take effect after they update the service. So that is one suspicion I have, depending on the version. Did they mention the version here?
Oh, and
120.
another thing is even if they enable Cornerstone, the initial zone must be in the customers, in the end of the subnet. Maybe they add the subnet after.
Yeah, I mean, they did add the subnet after because they created the node in the second zone after having created this service. So it sounds like, although that node did get added, according to step 6, we didn't update the NLB with the additional subnet or zone.
Yeah, subnets also doesn't get updated for the entry controller. So like we only specify during creation and we stick with it. And NLVs have sometimes they have like temporary. I have always seen the temporary limitation, but it prevents updating the subnets after creating. We can enable additional AZs, but we cannot change the subnets. Like I always see in my console. So it says temporary limitation, but something that we might have to be aware of for these type of things.
Got it. Okay, so it's an ordering problem, and the fact that so you're saying an entry doesn't support updating subnets after the fact.
Correct.
Okay. All right.
Yeah, assign to me. I will take a look further and then see what's the issue.
Sounds good. Okay, this one I created. Just wanted us to kind of have something public in either this repo, the load balancer controller repo, or both, just kind of telling users what we're doing. And based on what we've talked about, I'm sort of making the assumption we're moving NLP functionality to load balancer controller, and maybe we do some kind of either through just documentation or through a Helm chart, a unified installation method so that users can go to one place and just install both of these. It's maybe that, and maybe that's a bad idea. I mean, you might get the CCM through your installer, and maybe you're looking for the, I don't know how, we're probably not going to be able to meet all use cases here, but if you're using at least EKS, it's done for you. If you're using COPS, it should be very easy to configure these. So I think we just need to put a little thought into the story for users here.
Yeah, so for load balancer controller, we are very close to releasing 2.2.0, where we are going to support the instance target as well. After that, we'll update the documentation and we'll actively ask all the users to move to the load balancer controller, not use the entry controller, so that we can quickly get to the external controller without CCM as well.
Right, and for 2.2.0 is it, so it's going to support NLB instance. So the only reason they would be using entry is if they have classic load balancers that they don't want to move off of for some reason, right?
Yeah, correct. And if they don't want the complexity of load balancer controller, like they have simpler NLVs, they could still stick with entry.
Got it.
And we also have plans to change the default load balancer to NLB, right? So we probably want to bring that or put it somewhere in the roadmap.
Yeah, definitely. I'm thinking one thing we could do, similar to what we're doing upstream with Cloud Provider, is introduce a feature gate in CCM that at some point disables NLB functionality here. So they'd have to go and re-enable it, and we can provide some message there saying, this functionality and this controller is no longer supported. You should move to the load balancer controller.
And CLB is also like a legacy feature. So AWS kind of supports migrating to NLBs, and then NLBs will have like security group and diamond routing picks. At that point, like it should be more generally acceptable, right? So maybe that's the direction we want to think.
When you're saying when, like, as CLBs are deprecated, users should be moving to NLBs.
Correct. So we don't even provision CLBs. Like in the long run, we provision NLB by default when users create a service.
Okay. Okay, this one I had just sort of, you know, for the foreseeable future, next couple of releases, we will have code in the legacy cloud provider location. So there's some bug fixes go there. And then if they do go there, we'll need to cherry pick them back to this. And I was just thinking like, well, you know, we could maybe import this repo into legacy cloud provider, which we were originally doing the opposite. And Walter said this repo imports parts of staging, so it's not safe to import it into any of the KK public repos. I do not see it importing anything from KK private. As long as that remains true, I think it should be safe to import in KK private. So I don't know how important that is. Maybe we just deal with cherry picking for now because it's not going to last forever. So 21 release, test framework for ETE tests. I did do some work on its potential test framework. I just copied what we have in EBS CSI driver. Let's see.
So there was a similar issue in the load balancer controller repo as well. And then we asked the user to try using EIP alloc, which we already support. So we can specify the EIPs via annotation, and that's what we should ask. Also, they are using NLB IP, so we should close it outright, or we should just refer to the load balancer controller issue and close it.
Okay, I'll let you link that issue.
Sure.
Okay, publish credential provider consumables. That is being worked on. So this, we should just.
Yeah, this is also something already supported in load balancer controller in next release, I believe. We will be supplied.
Yeah, we'll support in 2.2.0. So we already have a way to specify private IPs.
Okay.
Just that we didn't port it in tree or cloud provider.
You said 2.2.0.
Yes.
So it's subnet selection.
So what's happening is like once we select the subnet, if the subnet is full, the load balancer creation fails, and that's expected right now. We don't try the next subnet, and that's what the user is asking here.
I see. Yeah.
Are we allowed more than one subnet in a
Only
same
one,
zone?
only one subnet per zone. So we have to select the one. Like when we create the load balancer, we have to select the proper one.
Right, and so it sounds like, oh, I see.
So
So
is-
yeah.
Is it if it fails, they want it to retry?
So here is the thing though, remember like we did some in-tree fix for EKS 119 where they can specify subnets annotation to choose the subnet they want. So that's going to save them here. So we should mention that. So rather than adding additional intelligence to our code, we should just ask them to use the annotation and they should give it a functional load balancer in that case.
Oh, got it. But depending on when that went in tree, it's possible that this has not been cherry picked to this repo.
It might have been cherry picked. We can take a look later. We can go through it. This is NLV, right? Not
Oh, is it?
CLV.
Let's see. They say ELB. Oh, they also say EKS 118.
It shouldn't matter. Okay, 118 will not have that annotation support. They will have to move to 119 or load balancer controller, either way.
Got it. Okay. So let's see.
You can either assign to me, I will post further comments and close it, or follow up with the user.
All right, sounds good.
Man, I'm getting a lot of issues.
Yeah, I mean, just make sure like involve me, and I will try to help you close these.
I will definitely have to. So
Yeah.
I see a load balancer. I'm just taking it up right now. So yeah, if it's not related, I will definitely reach out.
Where were we? Could not find this one, I think.
Yeah, so because we are not cluster tagging the subnets anymore, this repo might need the fix. I see the code like we cherry picked already, but we still need to see why they are not getting it to work.
Yeah. So what code is actually like, which fix are you talking about? Do we actually apply that tag now from?
So when we create the subnet, we no longer add the tag. So we proportionately for that, we fix the in-tree provider to not look at the cluster tag as well. I'll give you the PR.
Oh, okay.
And then you can see if a cloud provider AWS has that fix. I see the fix in the code, but I don't know the code flows exactly to make any further comment.
Okay. All right, I'll take this, but I'll work with you. All right, I think that's enough. I think if we give ourselves more issues, we won't get to them. So let's just call it. Anybody else have anything they want to talk about?
So I have a question. It sounds like the long-term direction is to get to a much richer model for load balancers. Is that right? In the AWS load balancer controller project, if I recall correctly, and which has like effectively like CRDs for everything, so you can specify all these things, and we have less magic logic. Is that right?
Currently not. So we are still using the service to do that, but using the better control is just to give us the opportunity to introduce new features quickly instead of rely on Kubernetes release schedule.
That makes sense. I mean, like, if I recall, Google added backing CRD. I can't remember whether it was on ingress or whether it was on service. It might have been on ingress, but they like that pattern, I think.
Yeah, they added a gateway API. So it's a new model for web and services. So we plan to support that as well. So internally, we kind of have a CRD, kind of like a CRD, but in memory, which is, specify all attributes. And we translate the ingress model or service model into our internal model. And then we operate on that internal model. So if we support other APIs, like the new API introduced by Google, we can just write a translation layer, which translates their gateway API into our internal API.
That makes sense. I think they also, even before adding an official API, added a additional CRD. I'm going to try to find the docs for that because it's a nice trick to still support custom features without having to do as much, without having to get everything into the core API, as it were. I'll paste the link.
All right, cool. Did anyone have anything else they want to talk about?
Oh yeah, by the way, I have a PR which I like to be immersed, and I'm not sure whether we can cherry pick into old versions because personally I think this is a bug. So let me send the channel. Yeah, so this one. So we didn't chunk the API when we register targets into NLB. So if we have 900 targets, this 900 targets will be registered at the same time. However, the ELB side, they might reject targets. Too many targets in a single call. The behavior currently is unspecified. So if that happens, they will reject the register target call infinitely, and they will throttle the customer. So I made a pair to fix it by register targets. Every 100 targets in a single API call. So can we cherry pick this into all the versions as well?
Yeah, I would think so. Andrew can probably add to that, but it was causing, it caused users issues, and if I would see this as a bug.
Yeah, if we're all in agreement here that it's a bug, I can go ahead and approve it, and I'll let other folks work with me.
Cool.
I added a link to the agenda. I have a PR to the load balancer controller for initial support for VPC endpoint services. And I'm hoping to get eyes on that.
Got it. Oh, I stopped sharing my screen, but all right, Kishore and Yang, you guys see the PR that Peter linked?
Yeah, we're aware of the PR. We're just like slightly busy with the 2.20 release right now, so you will have to put on hold for now, but we'll definitely take a look. Thank you for the contribution.
Cool. Thank you.
Yeah, and thanks for all the ongoing contributions that you are making to the repository. We really appreciate that.
Cool. All right, anything else? Okay, I think we can wrap up here. Thanks everybody for coming today, and see you all in 2 weeks.